Thank you for joining today's session. I am Caitlin Giles McCormick here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's webinar is on the Main Street Acquisition Support Grant Program, and we've got lots of great information to share with you. We are recording today's session, and it will be posted on the NJEDA.gov and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available. To officially start us off, we're going to switch things over to NJEDA's Program Manager of Business Banking, Lakeisha White. Lakeisha, take it away.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Caitlin, for that warm introduction. And so we just want to thank everyone for taking time out of your Monday afternoon to join us for this great info session. We're excited to share with you information about our Main Street Acquisition Support Grant. We are, as Caitlin mentioned, we are a New Jersey Economic Development Authority, and so we are celebrating our 50-year anniversary this year. And so some key things that we do want to share with you is that we are the principal agency for driving economic growth, and we're focused on supporting high-quality job creation, also catalyzing investments, and fostering vibrant, inclusive community development. We help with driving the state's economy, and we also want to help to increase equitable access to opportunities throughout the entire state. We do that in partnership with a diverse range of stakeholders. We partner with our premier lenders. We also partner throughout the state on initiatives to help improve the quality of life, enhance economic vitality, and to help strengthen New Jersey's long-term economic competitiveness. Now, our Main Street Acquisition Support Grant, this is a pilot product under the Main Street Recovery Fund that will offer a grant of up to $50,000 to reimburse an eligible New Jersey small business for closing costs related to the purpose of a New Jersey commercial property from which the small business will operate. Now, when we talk about reimbursement for closing costs, we're talking about things that you would pay that shows on your settlement sheet on line 1400, such as your appraisal, your fees that you may have paid for inspections. It's going to be fees related specifically to your closing cost. Now, this product, as I mentioned, it does align with our Main Street Recovery Finance Program by the NJEDA and will provide direct funding to small and micro businesses in the form, what this program provides funding in the form of a lease assistance, business improvement grants, as well as low interest loans and e-commerce to technical assistance and support. With this new product, as the authority, we're seeking to support New Jersey small business owners that are looking to grow into a New Jersey commercial property from which they'll be operating. This grant will also help New Jersey small businesses with putting liquidity back into your business. We understand that during the early stages of property ownership, that it can be financially stressful, particularly if the property does need renovations or improvements. With this program, there has been $5 million that has been allocated to the Main Street Acquisition Support Grant pilot product, with delegation to the Chief Executive Officer to increase grant funding to up to $10 million if demand exceeds the $5 million in available funding. The product will be available online at njeda.gov until the total funding pool is exhausted, or for 3 years from the date applications are made available to the public, unless the authority closes the application period earlier in order to modify or amend this product prior to launching a new phase. Again, the reimbursement is up to $50,000 and it's minus payoffs and purchase price and the purchase of the business. The reimbursement costs are paid by small businesses or the real estate holding company if you have one that's as a co-applicant. So here's the program details, of course. It must be an arm's length transaction with a conventional lender that administers commercial loans with standard underwriting criteria. So examples of conventional lenders would include an SBA lender, a bank, credit union, NJ state lenders. So for example, if you did do direct financing with the NJEDA, or if you did a participation with one of our premier lenders, that would also qualify. Also, New Jersey counter lender, New Jersey municipal lender, community development financial institutions, or minority depository institutions, MDIs. So the closing must have taken place after the application portal is open to the public. And so we'll be open the application portal tomorrow, October 1st. So unfortunately, if your closing does occur prior to the launch date, then you would not be eligible. The grant application date must be no later than 1 year from the date of the closing. So if you close anytime after the first, which is tomorrow, you would be eligible to apply. There would be one grant per EIN for a maximum of one location. And it's only available to small businesses again after the real estate closing. Businesses are not eligible to apply in advance of a scheduled closing. So you'll want to apply for this grant after you've had your closing. So, New Jersey businesses that are eligible would be for profit and nonprofit businesses. The business must meet the SBA definition of a small business. And so, size standards are mostly based on the average annual receipts or the average number of employees. SBA's table of small business size standards helps small businesses to assess their size. So, you do want to refer to SBA.gov. If there is a real estate holding company, if applicable, you would apply as the co-applicant, and then the small business must also apply as an applicant and occupy the purchased property. The small business must either wholly own the real estate holding company or ownership of both entities, and a percentage of ownership must be the same. So if there is a real estate holding company, again, the real estate holding company will be the co-applicant, and the ownership structure of both the small business and the real estate holding company, it must be the same ownership structure. So, additional property information for eligibility. It cannot be zoned for residential use only, and it cannot be vacant land. Again, the small business applicant must occupy and operate from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the building devoted to commercial use. Only a new purchase is eligible. It cannot be a refinance of an existing loan. And then we will place a 5-year deed restriction on the property. So, some key things just to remember: the business must continuously operate and occupy from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the building for duration of the grant term. The small business may lease a portion of the building so long as the grant recipient is also occupying and operating from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the building that's going to be devoted to commercial use at the time of signing the grant agreement. So that's going to be extremely important when you're looking to consider if your property is eligible. So additional terms would be there is a $500 approval fee. It's due at the time of approval. The grant agreement term is 5 years. And so with the small business lease grant awardees, they are eligible for this product. So if you did get our small business lease grant, you're eligible to apply. Any time remaining on the small business lease grant commitment will be added to the grant term and the 5-year deed restriction. Small business applicants must occupy and operate from the purchased property at the time of executing the grant agreement and continuously do so for the duration of the grant agreement. The compliance period will begin at the execution of the grant agreement. Next slide. There is an annual certification period, and so due to the statute, all employees, whether non-tipped or tipped of the small business, must be paid not less than 120% of the minimum wage rate. So the minimum rate will be based on what your industry is. And so you want to look for that type of industry. What is the minimum required pay rate? And so that means 120% of the minimum rate must be paid by the grantee to his employees for the duration of the grant term. And you'll be certifying this annually. Tenants other than the grantee that occupy the purchased property, they are not subject to the minimum wage requirement. And so, just as a reminder for New Jersey, the minimum wage requirement is $15.13 per hour. If you do not have employees or you pay, contractors 1099, then this is not applicable. And then this would be for any business that have W-2 employees. And so that compliance period will begin at the end of the execution of the grant agreement, and payroll documentation will be required to be submitted annually. Some other key things to keep in mind. So, if the property that you've purchased or plan to purchase, if the property does require major construction or major renovation that will prevent the small business applicant from operating from the purchased property, the small business applicant must begin operating from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the building that's going to be devoted to that for that commercial use, no later than 12 months from the date of executing the grant agreement. At the time of the first annual compliance period, you will be required to provide a certificate of occupancy confirming the major renovations and/or construction is completed. And you'll also want to certify to continuously operating from the purchased property since the date of the certificate of occupancy. Other things would include if, as an applicant, if you're not going to comply with the grant agreement terms, the property is sold out, if it's fully leased out, or if the small business no longer occupies and operates, from a minimum of 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the building prior to satisfying that 5-year compliance period, then a repayment of all or a portion of the grant funds will be required. Some important things as you express your interest in this grant application and you're ready to start applying, we do recommend that prior to applying that you want to use the checklist that we do have available. The full checklist can be found on NJEDA's Main Street Acquisition Support Grant webpage. And so we do have a 2-page checklist that outlines everything that would be required to be submitted with the application. And so some required documents that will be required to be submitted would include your HUD-1, your closing disclosure or other settlement statement, your full appraisal, the New Jersey tax clearance certificate, the deed to the property, affidavit of title, your W-30 or other payroll documentation if applicable. So if you are paying people as contractors and have a a 1099, then that would be different. This would be for W-2 employees. And then federal tax returns. So you want to provide your 3 most recent consecutive years to be filed if applicable. For the tax clearance certificate, the WR-30 or other payroll documentation, federal tax returns, and business formation documents, they will be required for both the applicant, and then if you do have a real estate holding company, that will be the co-applicant, and we will require documentation for the real estate holding company as well. If the business is a nonprofit, then we will require the last 3 years of financial statements or last 3 years of the 990s. And so we have provided some instructions here for you on how to apply for the tax clearance certificate. This will be required to be submitted as a part of your application. And so you'll want to visit our website for instructions on how submitting it. And it will also be included with the presentation materials. And for assistance, you can send an email to the email address listed below. But again, we just like to point this out because this is one of the key requirements in submitting the application. And so now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ryan, who will be going over the application portal.
All right. Thank you, Keisha. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ryan, and I'm a senior product officer here at NJEDA. At this time, we're going to utilize the time to walk you through a step-by-step of the application. This way, it'll kind of give you an idea on what to expect, how to complete it, and the documentation that's going to be requested as well. So getting started, the application portal, it's going to be open Tuesday, October 1st at 10 a.m. on the Main Street Acquisition Support Grant webpage that's listed here on the slide. Applications will be reviewed on a first-come, first-served basis based on the date and time that the authority receives the completed application. This pilot product will be available online at njeda.gov until the total funding pool is exhausted, or for 3 years from the date applications are made available to the public, unless the authority closes the application period earlier in order to modify or amend this product prior to launching a new phase. Also, just a reminder that the board memo, program specifications, application checklists, and FAQs are posted on the website. This page here, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go to the application page that's located at programs.njeda.com. You will see the NJEDA Application Center where you can click on Sign In, which is in the upper right-hand corner. After you click Sign In, you will simply enter your username and password to log in. If this is the first time using the portal to apply for an NJEDA product, you will need to click on Register. So if you've never applied for a product before, you're going to want to register here. And you can register at any time, even though the application won't be available until tomorrow at 10 a.m. You can still go ahead and register today. If you've applied with EDA before using this portal, but you're having trouble getting, or maybe you've forgotten your password or your username, you can click on the Forgot Your Password key at the bottom and follow the instructions from there. An email will be sent to you with your username and instructions on resetting the password. So this is instructions on how to register. Again, if this is your first time using the portal to apply for one of EDA programs, you will need to register first. After you click on register, you will be prompted to enter your email address and to create a username and a password. Your username can be the same as your email. Please just keep in mind that whatever email you do use, make sure that it's an email that you can check frequently and have easy access to, as this will be the main way that we communicate with you throughout the application process. Once you've created your password, you'll confirm your password and click on register at the bottom. Now, if you previously applied for other NJEDA programs using this portal, for example, the COVID, Small Business Improvement, or Small Business Lease Grant, we may have your email address in our system already. And if that's the case, you'll see a pop-up come up to let you know that we recognize that email address and it is already in our system here on this slide. So in order to proceed, you will need to email yourself an invitation code and use that to access the program application. Simply just click on the OK on this pop-up to proceed. The next screen will ask you to click on Send Invitation and will tell you where that invitation will be sent. Once you've received the invitation as shown in step number 2, you will then click on the link within the invitation, which will take you back to the application center with your invitation code pre-populated. Once you click on Register, enter your username and password twice to confirm, then click Register. Make sure you're waiting for an email from us that if you're checking junk, spam, make sure it didn't go to a junk or spam folder if it's not in your main inbox. And again, make sure you keep your username and password stored in a safe place and ready to use for your application. You will also need your sign-on information every time you want to access the application portal for your application status. Once you click register, you will need to set up the applicant profile. You must complete the section for your information and all required fields such as name, last name, and phone number. You're then going to want to confirm your email address is correct, and this is going to be the primary way NJEDA contacts your business. So you want to make sure that that email address is correct. Once complete, you can just complete update. And at any time, if you are having trouble logging in, you can contact our customer care line at 844-965-1125, and a representative will assist you. Now, once your email is confirmed, you're going to want to go back to the application center to begin the application. If needed, you can click Sign In at the top of the right to enter your username and your password. If you've already signed in, you will see the applicant's name in the top right instead of the word Sign In. Once signed in, you will click on the product name Main Street Acquisition Support Grant that's listed here on this slide. Now, this page here, once you click Main Street Acquisition Support Grant, this entire first section is going to cover product eligibility, which you will want to read, and you're going to need to acknowledge you've reviewed this before starting the application. There is a note to remind you that there is a limit of 1 grant per business EIN for a maximum of 1 location. I also want to point out that on this page, there's links to the product application checklist, board memo and specs, and the FAQs, which are also available on the website. Once you've read through the information provided here, you're going to want to hit that checkbox at the bottom, acknowledging that you have reviewed these materials, and then you can proceed with the application. After you hit the acknowledge, down at the bottom right, you're going to want to hit create. And once you hit the create button, you can go ahead and start your application for the Main Street Acquisition Support Grant. And above, as always, if you need language assistance, you can always contact language help at njeda.gov. First page of the application is going to ask you for language assistance. You can provide a yes or no response if English is your primary language. If it is not, you can select no. You can identify your primary language, and then you can answer the last question at the bottom if the NJEDA needs to contact you regarding your application, if you want to have an interpreter reach out to you. Free language assistance is available for free, and you can also send an email to languagehelp@njeda.gov. Now, after the language page, you're going to get to this page here, which is going to be a pretty important page. This is how you're going to set up really the remaining application. So the first question it's going to ask you is, it's going to ask if the entity that purchased the commercial property is a real estate holding company. If you select yes, this is going to prompt you to put in the real estate holding company information later in the application. So if the entity was a real estate holding company, please keep in mind that the applicant on the application must be the small business that operates from the commercial building. The co-applicant on the application must be the real estate holding company. The small business applicant must either wholly own the real estate holding company, or the ownership of both entities and percentage of ownership must be the same. And a certification will be required by the real estate holding company to confirm that it will provide a 5-year deed restriction on the property that restricts the property transfer. Now, if the property was purchased by the small business, you would just put here no, and then you would be asked the next question: is the entity that purchased the property, the commercial property, was the property purchased by the small business that will operate from the commercial building? If this was the case, you would select yes, and you would proceed forward. Now, if the answers to both of these questions are no, if the property was not purchased through the real estate holding company, and the property was not purchased by the small business that will operate from the commercial building, you're going to get a warning that it's not recommended you apply because you would not be eligible for this grant. Now, this next section here of the application, it collects your primary point of contact information for the individuals we may need to speak with regarding the application. Here you'll provide the contact information for the primary point of contact within the applicant's company. NJEDA will keep this contact updated on the status of your application. Now, if the answer is no to any of these questions that are listed, implying that the primary contact is not the authorized representative, not the CEO, or not the media contact, the applicant will have an opportunity to enter this information later in the application. If the primary contact is yes to each of those individuals, it'll automatically be provided that information that you're selecting for the primary contact. Now, this is the applicant organization section of the application. In this section, we're collecting information about the company that is applying for assistance. Now, keep in mind, this applicant is the small business that's operating from the purchased property. So this is specifically for the applicant. You're going to start out with the applicant organization name. It's important that you enter the business name correctly. There's a link here that's provided that you can do a business name search on the website to verify the accuracy of your business name. If you have a DBA name, you'll want to provide that as well, and also upload a certificate of alternate name. That is only if you have a DBA name that you use. Next, you will also enter the entity type, so the structure of the business, for example, LLC, S Corp, C Corp, partnership, nonprofit. You're also going to enter the date business was established. Please make sure this date matches the data for the date on the formation documents, and you're also going to enter the mailing address for the applicant as well. And this next page here, this is page 2 of the applicant organization. You're going to input the county and state of the incorporation or formation. You're going to upload the formation docs for the applicant. Formation documents can include the certificate of trade name, certificate of formation, and certificate of incorporation. Next to each entity type is an example of the document for reference, and there's also a link there. It'll actually bring a redacted file that you can see what those look like as an example. Next, you're going to enter the EIN for the applicant that's applying. Please be advised there's a limit of 1 grant per EIN. So if the applicant applied under the same EIN already, it's actually going to give you a hard stop. It's going to pick up that you applied already. If you believe this is an error, just please contact us at businessbanking@njeda.gov and we can take a look at it for you. You're going to enter the NJ tax ID, phone number for the business, website, and lastly, just a very high-level description of the applicant business. This is the remaining page of the applicant organization. You're going to start at the top by the NAICS code. And by doing the NAICS code, you're going to want to first just click the magnifying glass and you can do a search. Please make sure that the code you enter is also the same code that's listed on your most recent business tax filing. Next, you're going to have an upload field for your tax clearance certificate. There's also information in there if you do have trouble, as Keisha mentioned earlier in our slides, there's also instructions on how to access that tax clearance certificate as well. There's a question regarding if the applicant is involved in religious activities or religiously affiliated. If you answer yes, there's going to be a religious activity questionnaire to download and submit with the application. The final 2 questions are going to be if you've ever received prior NJEDA assistance. If you select yes, you're going to be prompted to include the entities who have received NJEDA assistance in the past. And you're also going to provide a list of any of the programs, the time frame when they were provided, and the status of any of those awards or agreements that you had with NJEDA. Lastly, you're going to want to certify yes or no if the firm is in default with any other program administered by the state of New Jersey. Please be advised that any applicant must be in compliance and in good standing with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of the Treasury, and with NJEDA. On this page, we have our cannabis questionnaire that has 2 questions regarding the cannabis industry. New Jersey state law prohibits certain cannabis licenses and certified personal use cannabis handlers, employers from receiving or continuing to receive most financial incentive awards. If you indicate yes for either of these questions, you may not be eligible for this program. And this brings us to our organization details page. This next section, you will be asked to provide organization details to include the number of full-time and part-time employees at time of application and 3 months prior to the application. You will be prompted to upload NJWR 30s, payroll reports, or equivalent documentation for the quarter preceding submission of your application. When asked to provide your annual gross revenue, this amount must match the information provided on the organization's most recent filed federal income tax return. Next, you're going to be asked if the small business filed tax returns in the last 3 years. If yes, you're going to be prompted to upload 3 years of tax returns. For example, at this point in time, as of September 30th, this would be 2023, 2022, and 2021 if applicable. If you have not filed 2023 and did an extension, you can also upload 2022, 2021, 2020, and proof of your approved IRS tax return extension for 23. If you select no to this question, if your business has filed tax returns and you select no as that answer, you're just going to be prompted to indicate a reason as to why you have not filed returns. Now, this is the business location section of your organization details, part of the application. Here, you're going to want to click to add a business location. to provide information on all the applicants' businesses, locations in New Jersey. So you're going to want to start out by hitting that Add Business Location button. In doing so, a pop-up will appear and you're going to be prompted to answer a series of questions for that business location. The first question being asked is this the location of the purchased property in New Jersey? You're going to want to select yes for the address of the acquired commercial property. So whatever property that was purchased and that's submitting for the reimbursement of the grant, you're going to want to select yes for that address. Now, this is important because whatever address you select or you input here and you select yes, this address is automatically going to populate later in the application in what we call our property detail section. So whatever address you put here and you mark yes as the purchased property, this address will populate later in the application. So you want to make sure that's correct. If you have multiple locations, you would continue to add business location. And if it wasn't the purchased property and you have other locations in New Jersey, you would select no, enter the address, city, state, zip code, and continue until you are finished. Now, in order to proceed to the next part of the application, you have to input your purchased property. So it's not going to allow you to move forward unless you put yes and enter the address of the property that was purchased. And when you enter an add business location, this is also going to be one of the questions that it's going to ask is you're just going to want to put a brief description of the functions performed at this location. Now, this section, we will need information for all individuals and entities that have an ownership percentage in your business. This section specifically is for the small business applicant operating from the purchased property. If you indicated the property was purchased through a real estate holding company earlier in the application, you will enter the co-applicant ownership breakdown later in the application. So this ownership section is specifically for the small business operating from the property. You're going to want to start out by clicking Add Owner. An Add Ownership pop-up window will appear, and it is the responsibility of the applicant to add all individuals or entities that have an ownership percentage in the business. This pop-up will have to be completed for each owner. All percentages must equate to 100% in order to proceed. So if you have one owner and they're 100%, you'd be able to proceed. If you put in an owner and it's only 50%, it's not going to allow you to proceed until you complete that 100% ownership. Now, this section at the bottom, if you had indicated earlier in the application that the property was purchased through a real estate holding company, you're going to be prompted here to upload documents supporting the relationship between the real estate holding company and the small business applicant, such as partnership agreements, bylaws, formation documents, and/or operating agreements to establish ownership structure and ownership percentages. The small business, again, must either wholly own the real estate holding company or the ownership of both entities, and percentage of ownership must be the same. So you're only going to have this document relationship upload if you indicated earlier in the application it was purchased through a real estate holding company. If you had indicated it wasn't, you will not have this pop up. Now, this section here is specifically for the real estate holding company who would be the co-applicant on the application. Now, this was important in the beginning of the application when you're indicating if it is a real estate holding company, purchase the property, or if it's not. If you selected yes, then you're going to have this prompt pop up to include all the information for the co-applicant. If you had indicated no earlier in the application, you will not complete any of this information. It won't even show up for you. So again, if you did indicate you have a real estate holding company that purchased it, it's going to ask you for the same information that we're gathering for the applicant. So you're going to gather all the co-applicant information as well. So you're going to start out by their organization name, any DBA name, entity type, and questions that follows as well. Again, same information that we're collecting for the applicant, we're going to be collecting for the co-applicant as well. Second piece of the real estate holding company co-applicant organization information, you're going to be gathering the address, country and state of incorporation, formation documents, EIN, tax ID, phone number, website, and a short description of the co-applicant as well. Same thing here. You're also going to be gathering the NAICS code, tax clearance certificate, and religious question, as well as prior NJEDA assistance, or if they're in default with any other program administered by the state of New Jersey. Here, you're going to be gathering the full-time and part-time employee count of the co-applicant, WR30 and payroll reports or equivalent documentation for the quarter preceding the submission of the application, the co-applicant's gross revenue, and co-applicant's tax returns if they had filed in the last 3 years. Now, this section is similar to the ownership section for the applicant, since you had indicated it was a real estate holding company earlier in the application. This is where you're going to complete all the information for individuals or entities that have an ownership percentage in the real estate holding company. It's going to be the same instructions as before. You're going to want to click add owner. An ownership pop-up window will appear, and you will enter all individuals, entities that have an ownership percentage in the real estate holding company. Again, the individuals that you add up need to be equal to 100% in order to move forward. And again, the small business applicant must either wholly own the real estate holding company, or the ownership of both entities and percentage of ownership must be the same. Now, property details page, this is where we gather a lot of information on the actual property that was purchased and the project. So starting out is you're going to have the address of the property that was acquired. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the application, on your business location page of your application, when you select yes as the acquired property and that populates, this is where it populates to. So whatever address that you had entered prior in the application in your business location section as the acquired property is yes, that is going to populate here, and you're going to be unable to edit it. So double check and make sure that this address is correct as the purchased property. Now, going over a few of the questions that's going to be asked regarding the project. First we have, is the property acquired vacant land or without a commercial building? Now, this program doesn't allow for vacant land, so if you answer yes, you would not be eligible for this program. Next is the property acquired being solely used for residential purposes? This program doesn't allow for 100% residential use. So again, if you answer yes to this question, you would not be eligible for the program. Now, you're going to get warnings as well in the application if you indicate yes for either question. Now, the question at the bottom is going to ask you if the applicant, which would be the small business, currently operates from at least 1,000 square feet of total usable square footage of the building devoted to commercial use. If you answer no to this question, you're going to be prompted a question that's going to ask you, does the property purchase require any major construction or major renovation that prevents the small business applicant from currently operating from at least 1,000 square feet of total usable square footage of the building devoted to commercial use? So if you answer no to the business operating from at least 1,000 square feet, it's going to ask you if there's any major construction or renovation that's required. Now, if you answered no, you would not be eligible for this program, since the small business will not operate from at least 1,000 square feet of commercial space. If you answer yes to the property needing major construction renovation, you're going to be asked to provide the date the small business will operate from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the building devoted to commercial use. So if you're not operating there yet and the property does require construction renovation, it's going to ask you to put in the date on when you do intend to operate from the purchased property. Now, the small business applicant will be required to certify annually, beginning 12 months after the execution of the grant agreement, and for the term of the grant agreement, that the small business applicant identified in the application is operating out of the property. At the time of the initial 12-month certification, NJEDA will collect a certificate of occupancy to further confirm that construction and renovations are complete and that the small business applicant operates from the purchased property. If at the time of the initial annual compliance period and for the term of the grant agreement, the small business applicant has not demonstrated and/or certified to operating from the purchased property, the repayment of all or a portion of the grant will be required. Next, you're going to be asked if the applicant and/or co-applicant has the same name listed on the deed and affidavit of title of the purchased property. You're just going to select yes or no for this question. Next question, was the financing for the purchased property obtained in an arm's length transaction with a conventional lender? If you select yes, you will be provided a drop down to select who the financing was provided by. If financing for the purchased property was not obtained in an arm's length transaction with a conventional lender, and you answer no, you will not be eligible for this program. Next, you're going to want to enter the closing date on your commercial property. Please note the closing must have occurred no later than 1 year from the date of application and after the application being made available to the public on October 1st, 2024. The application will give you a warning if you enter a date prior to October 1st, 2024, or if you try to enter a future date. Next, you're going to upload the closing documents associated with the property being acquired. Those would include a HUD-1 settlement statement, a closing disclosure, or settlement statements. Next, you're going to enter the amount of the closing costs minus the business purchase price or any payoffs. Next, you're going to enter the amount of the grant you're requesting. Please be advised that it can't exceed $50,000. And next, you're going to be prompted to upload a copy of the deed that has been filed after closing on the property. Here is just the remaining items on the property details page. You're going to be asked to upload a copy of the affidavit of title for the property that was received after closing on the property. You're going to upload a copy of the full appraisal on the purchased property. You're going to enter the amount of the total square footage of the property devoted to commercial use. And then lastly, you're going to enter the amount of the total square footage devoted to commercial use that the applicant business will operate from. Now, a warning will appear if the amount that you enter is below the 1,000 square foot requirement. This brings us to our applicant representation page. NJEDA requires that the legal questionnaire, certification of non-involvement in prohibited activities in Russia or Belarus, acknowledgements of applicant, and certification of applicant are to be completed and signed by one of the above that's indicated here on the slide. If you indicate no as the authorized representative, as indicated above, you will be prompted to the upload certifications page, which will require the authorized representative to download, sign, and upload these certifications. Now, if you are the authorized representative, you'll be prompted to fill these pages through the rest of the application. On the previous page, if you indicated that the person completing this application is not an authorized representative, this is what the page is going to look like. You're going to be prompted to download the legal questionnaire, certification of non-involvement in prohibited activities in Russia or Belarus, and the certification of application. This would need to be signed, completed, and uploaded by one of the authorized representatives that is defined above in this slide. The authorized representative will also have this program specific certification as well to download, sign, and upload. If the property was acquired through a real estate holding company and you have a real estate holding company as your co-applicant, you will be prompted to this page where there is a legal questionnaire, certification of non-involvement in prohibited activities in Russia and Belarus, certification of application, and the program specific certifications for the co-applicant to download, sign, and upload. Now, if an authorized representative is completing the application, instead of the uploads, they're going to be prompted to complete all these certifications throughout the application. So instead of the uploads, they would go here. They're going to start out by completing these program specific certifications. The first one being consenting to have NJEDA place a 5-year deed restriction on the purchased property. Please be advised that this action will restrict a property a property sale or transfer for 5 years. They're also going to certify that the applicant business will operate from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable square footage of the property devoted to commercial use for the duration of the 5-year grant compliance period. Now, please be advised that NJEDA will require applicants to provide information on an annual basis to ensure compliance. The last certification that they're going to be certifying is that the applicant business that occupies and operates from the property will pay employees 120% of the New Jersey minimum wage for the duration of the 5-year grant compliance period. This also be advised that NJEDA will require applicants to provide information on an annual basis to ensure compliance. This is the legal questionnaire section of the application. In advance, you can download a full copy of the legal questionnaire if needed to review for the application. And legal questionnaire will begin asking if there are any affiliates. If there are affiliates, you can hit the add applicant owned affiliates or add other affiliates sections where you can add in the affiliate information. You will then proceed with answering questions starting in part A. At the end of the legal questionnaire, you will provide an electronic signature and title. Next is the certification of non-involvement in prohibited activities form that you're going to be completing. If you're not able to complete the certification of non-involvement because you, your entity, or one of its parents, subsidiaries, or affiliates may have engaged in prohibited activities in Russia or Belarus, you will need to provide the NJEDA with a detailed, accurate, and precise description of the activities. Please email the NJEDA point of contact on your matter at certifications@njeda.com immediately to commence this process. If you provide a detailed, accurate, and precise description of the activities, you will be given 90 days to cease engaging in any prohibited activities and will be required to provide a completed certification of non-involvement on or before the 90th day. If you do not provide a completed certification of non-involvement on or before the 90th day, the NJEDA shall not approve you for an economic development subsidy from the NJEDA. It is highly recommended that you do not submit this application for financial assistance until you can complete the certification. Lastly, the applicant certifications page. All information presented in the application must be certified as being true and accurate, which the applicant would complete here. This brings us to our fee acknowledgement page. The fee section of the application, you are only acknowledging at this point that there is a $500 approval fee payable after NJEDA approval and prior to the execution of the grant agreement. There is no application fee, so there is no fee due at this time. Please be advised, $500 approval fee, once paid, is non-refundable. Once you submitted your payment, you will be asked for your electronic signature to then submit the application. You will need to hit the submit application at the bottom of the page for your application to be submitted. So very important, you want to make sure that you hit submit application at the bottom in order for your application to go through. And once you hit submit application, the submission confirmation page will list all the applicants' confirmation numbers. All future application communication will be sent to the email provided in the application. You can hit return to homepage at this point now that your application is completed, and you can kind of see like a status of your application in the portal. But at this time, you can kind of just sit tight, and NJEDA employee will contact you to go over your application. And with that being said, that is the end of the presentation. We'll kind of open this time for some additional questions and answers. Just another reminder that this info session is recorded and it will be uploaded to the website. So if you need to access this again to go through the application, you can access the webinar that will be posted to the website, or always contact us directly at businessbanking@njeda.gov. So we'll go ahead and open this time for some Q&A.
Nye or Lakeisha, are there any specific questions that you've seen that have come through in the Q&A that you think would be good to share for folks?
Thanks, Caitlin. So one of the questions that we've seen come up was how long does it take for an application to be approved? To answer that question, I would say that we will try to get to, or we'll work really hard to get to every application and to process it as quickly as we can. However, it is also a matter of getting a completed application. If we can get a completed application, the more complete it is, the quicker we can move through the process. But we also want to make sure that our audience knows that we do also have to do state agency checks with the Department of Labor and the Department of Environmental Protection. So if there are any findings during those checks, that can also delay the process a little bit. So we would just want to ask, one, make sure we get a completed application. We went through the tax clearance steps today. So we'll have a replay of this recording, not necessarily a replay, but it will be on our website. So you can refer to those instructions again if needed. So having your tax clearance ready at time of application, and then also making sure that you are in good standing with our sister agencies, will just help us move the process along as quick as possible. What is the maximum grant amount? The maximum grant amount is $50,000 for one eligible single location and per EIN. There's a question asked if the property can be mixed use. Yes, the property can be mixed use so long as the small business applicant that is occupying the property occupies and operates from at least 1,000 square feet of the total usable space of the property for the term of the grant period, the 5-year grant period. I think we're good, Caitlin. It looks like there's one more. What are the locations allowed? I'm not quite sure exactly.
It's statewide, yeah, yes?
Yeah, it's statewide, so as long as the property is located in New Jersey, commercial property in New Jersey.
Some of our programs do have. That's not the case for, but this one is statewide. And then someone's asking about opportunity zone census tracts, if they can find more information.
Yes, we can put that link in the chat. And for any more information, you can also email our team today or anytime you have questions in regards to this product or any of our business banking products at businessbanking@njeda.gov.
I'm going to jump in here to a couple questions I see. Does a DBA require its own EIN? A DBA, that's just a doing business as, so that'd be a name that you use for your actual business. So a DBA that wouldn't have a different EIN, that would just be a different name that's used. New Jersey has a portal where you would actually register a DBA name. So hope that answers your question there.
New entities are eligible. So if you're newly started, yes, you are eligible to apply. This is a pilot program that will be available for 3 years or until funding has been exhausted. So if you have not closed just yet on your property, you may still have time to apply if it's within the next few months or year. But the program will be available again until funding is exhausted or 3 years, whichever comes sooner.
So now I know potentially you're looking for the opportunity zone census tract link. Is that something that's included in the FAQs on the main page as well? That type of information?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so that FAQ document is a downloadable one on that main page. Sorry, not go ahead.
Once you apply, you'll get an email right away confirming your application. And again, based off of volume, we should have a representative be with you as soon as we can get to your application to go over the process and the timelines. If you have any questions about the responses or questions after your application is submitted, you can always email us at businessbanking@njeda.gov.
I see another question. If closing happened in 2021, but the business moved into the space in 23, are we eligible? Unfortunately, you would not be eligible for this grant. The closing would need to be after application is open, which is tomorrow, October 1st, 24. So any closing prior to that would not be eligible, unfortunately.
Thank you, Keisha and Ryan and everyone for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to our customer care using the phone number in the chat or our email at businessbanking@njeda.gov.
Wonderful. Thank you all and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good one.